and welcome back to C & Free Studio. This is Jen Longyen, and this is the place where we like to talk about what makes us unique, special, and different. And sometimes we find in our lives that we need somebody around us who brings their unique, special, and different to the table, and they always have yours in mind, and they have your back. And today's guest is that person for me. She's a litigation and IP partner at Kirkland Ellis in Los Angeles, and she represents many clients. The risks that she looks at are unfair competition, false advertising, trademarks, copyrights, trade secrets, and patent matters, both in California and federally. She'll explain what all of that means when we talk to her. We worked together at Dollar Shave Club, and I developed a great admiration for her. She immediately showed me her killer instincts, her expertise, and her ability to learn literally everything about a business in order to defend it and protect it and make sure that we were free from risks. I have become friends with her. I really appreciate her every day. Please welcome Allison Buchner.
Thank you.
Hi, my friend.
And the admiration is mutual. I think we complement each other well.
We do.
Even in our clothes.
That's right. Exactly. It's so
match,
true.
Or we coordinate without intending to.
It's very true. Well, Allison, I meant everything I said. I have one incredible admiration for you, but you've taught me a lot about what you do. And so before we jump into the purpose of the show, can you tell everybody, what does an IP lawyer and litigation expert do, and what does that mean?
Well, first and foremost, we litigate cases, but I do a much broader, my practice is broader than that. So a good litigator is also counseling clients on how not to be in litigation, how to avoid it, but also how to win. And I represent a range of corporate clients in intellectual property disputes, false advertising, other sorts of consumer protection matters. I like to think that I'm sort of a Jill of all trades because I love learning new things. So whatever the case brings to the table, I learn it quickly to do the best I can for that client.
Yeah, and that's something that I was amazed at. One, just appreciation of what you have to do for your job to understand all of that. You know, you have to kind of understand the whole business, like everything that your clients do, but you do have like an insatiable like ability to learn, like, and just kind of like dig in and figure everything out. Have you always been that way? Or is this something that's unique to your profession?
I think some of it's unique. I mean, I think I do have a really good memory. My husband would tell you about really good memory because he can never win when it's like telling a story from the past because I remember it. But anyway, I think I have a really good memory, but I do think one of my talents is sort of cataloging lots of information and making sense of it. And that sort of feeds into this, you and I used to refer to making sense out of chaos. And that's also what synthesizing tons of information is. I think a lot of lawyers look at cases, particularly if it's a litigation, in a very, insular way. Like, we're working on this issue, this patent issue, this trademark issue. But one of the things I've learned along the way from a lot of other great lawyers is that you're not going to do your client as much of a service if you're focusing on an insular issue. You really do have to see the big picture. And that's something that I think helps us also drive the best result.
Well, that's great. And like I said, you've taught me so much about the profession and just, and just watching how you learn. So I'm really curious for you to like share with us, what's your unique, special, different, like what's that thing that drives you to, the pursuit of knowledge and everything that you do every day?
I was thinking about this as I was driving here today because I knew you would ask.
Yeah.
And I think that part of my unique, special, and different is that ability to make order out of chaos and to synthesize lots of information. I also think, I remember kind of growing up at my particular law firm, we used to do a questionnaire every year for our summer associates, and one of the questions that the attorneys were asked is, what's your secret to success? And I always answered fear of failure. And so I do think that, for better or for worse, that intense fear of failure has been my unique, special, and different because it's given me an incredible drive to win and to succeed at, sometimes at great personal costs, right? Yeah. But I think it's that. And then I would say it's sort of a combination of those two things. And then also, lawyers kind of have a bad reputation. People think we're no fun, and obviously we are. But I think too, for me, I really do like people, and so it comes from like a problem-solving perspective, and it can't just be like, well, now I've learned all this information, and this is what you need to do, right? Or this is what you shouldn't do, or no, you can't do this. So even though as a lawyer, I inherently actually really love rules and want people to follow them and want to, I really like people, and one of the most satisfying things is wrapping your head around a problem, solving it with colleagues and friends, and working toward a better reality, whatever that means, without it feeling like, well, the lawyer told us we have to do this, but really like, let's grow something together. Let's make order out of chaos together. Let's do this as a team. So I think it's really like enjoying people and authenticity of people, but also problem solving and that fear of failure.
So, I mean, has that been something that you've felt about yourself your whole life? I mean, when you think back on Allison as a child, would you say that was also a driver back then, or has that something you've kind of grown into?
That's interesting. Do you mean all of those? I was thinking specifically about this fear of failure aspect, because I don't think that was always there. I think that specifically, frankly, probably, maybe it was always there, and it's just like law school, which is a unique environment, sort of intensifies that, and then going on to what is, an intense, career. And then but I do think synthesizing information is probably something I've always been good at. And I think I've probably, for a lot of reasons, from my family, learned to thrive in chaos. And that really helps me in everything I do, right? Because I'm not intimidated by chaos. It's like, well, let me make sense of this and let me make it better for everyone involved.
Yeah, and I've seen you do that many times, and so obviously you can do that in your work. But how does that carry over into your personal life today? As a mom and a professional and a community member, how does that show up there?
I think still, I probably still take into those scenarios this desire to fix and do something about it and to make a difference. And as you know, I have a child with special needs, so certainly who is, I have two girls, 9 and 12. My 12-year-old has a rare genetic disorder that causes her to have a movement disorder. And so if you told me in law school, when everyone was telling me that it's hard to be a lawyer and hard to be a lawyer and a mom, that I would have all these extra things, right? I would have laughed, but we've thrived in it. And I really do believe that. And when I meet new special needs moms, I always say, you're gonna thrive. And I think that's been especially true because of, in part, and I think my husband often tells people this, in part because of my desire to figure it out. And I've always said that Sammie is not, a mystery to be solved or a thing to be figured out. She's this beautiful child that being her mom and me as mom is one of the greatest gifts in my life. But at the same time, I've had to synthesize a lot of information about her among the years and along the way, and we've specialist after specialist and getting a diagnosis and then what? And so I think that's how I bring stuff to my family. I would probably say that a weakness in that is I'm often so busy doing that I can be a little intense, and so my current goal for myself is to really, I think what I need to do to see and free myself is to really get back, to find the ways to have fun and really remember the root is having fun. It isn't just doing and succeeding, whether that be succeeding in a profession or succeeding at the things I want for my family, or we launched this new foundation, the CACNA 1A Foundation, for research for Sammie's diagnosis. Yeah. So that's a lot of things to do, and I love it all, right? I really do, and succeeding at them all is really important to me. But also remembering to be light and fun sometimes in the middle of it is one of my challenges.
Yeah. Well, I've had some fun with you, so I can attest that you can have fun.
Yeah, we won't. Those are the stories we don't.
That's right. We won't talk about this. But I do think. You're right. Especially I think a lot of people have had especially this last year and a half, to reflect on that. What is my life? What am I getting out of it? Where am I spending my energy? where do I want to be spending my energy? Like, has this been something that you've kind of come to, this, wanting to bring some fun back into your life just through all of this, or has this been something that's been growing over time?
I think it's always been there. I think I am pretty intense, and so finding little ways to make sure I remember to stop and smell the roses, for lack of a better saying, has been something that's been there for a long time. I mean, we used to have a joke. I can't remember where we went, but we went on a vacation. And I bought some like silly hat in some store, and I put it on. And my husband joked that like Vacation Allison was so much fun. And so then every vacation after that, I buy a vacation hat, and we kind of joke that like that's like a symbol to me to like just chill out and enjoy. But I do have to make a conscious decision, I think, often to do that. I do think in a lot of ways the pandemic has, and being home, all of us home all the time, has reminded me of that, right? Because I think I've talked to friends about this, and I know a lot of people have felt this way. You may have as well, which is our family usually knows that we work hard and maybe that we work a lot, but they don't see what it looks like.
Yeah.
And during this, I realized we're all modeling for our children what it looks like to work. And we can't let them believe that to grow up and have a big job and be successful means being unhappy. And so that I do think that a lot of people, and myself included, like I've had to, like, I am very bad about getting in a task and like just tunneling down and working for hours to get it done, and realizing that my kids were watching is important, and that means they should see that I also take care of myself in the midst of that. I stop and have meals, I exercise, all of those things. So I think that's where the pandemic's come in for me, is like they are seeing everything.
Yeah, they are, and they pay attention to everything, right?
Yeah.
And they put it back on you really fast, which is great. And Allison and I have both children around the same age who are very similar. I think our youngest children are definitely our conscience.
Yes.
For both of us. So yeah, you're right. I mean, I think, trying to figure out how to convey that to them, that, being strong, bringing all of yourself to your work is important, but that, you're human and all of those things that come along with it.
Yeah.
So what is fun for you these days when you think about having a good time and enjoying yourself?
So I recently started reading again, which has been an interesting thing, because I've always, reading for pleasure. I mean, I read a lot for work, but it's been a long time since I've read for pleasure, because I always have thought like I have too much to do, or I don't want to sit down for a long time. And for whatever reason, a friend recently recommended a book in like a Facebook post, and I just ordered it. And for the first time in years, I couldn't put a book down. We went to the beach one day, I read it all day. So I'm trying to remember, and I think I'm trying to remember that like at night, right before I go to sleep or whatever, at times when I would normally sit down and mindlessly scroll on my phone, I'm trying to pick up a book that I love. So that's fun. What's always been fun for me is travel. I mean, that really does fuel my... I'm always thinking of another trip. That helps when I'm working hard. That's like always my light at the end of the tunnel. That's been hard in this last year and a half, because we couldn't do that. And like really having different experiences with my kids and watching things through their eyes. All of those things. Yeah.
That's great. The travel, I think for me too, is the thing that I cannot wait to do again. And just experience the world and reconnect with the world. And so we need more of those. You and I actually, I laugh because one of the last times we hung out together was when we were traveling.
Yes.
Even though we live really close to each other. I always like to take time during the show to ask a random question.
Okay, do it.
Okay, so you get to pick between 1 and 25, and I will ask the question.
12.
12. All right. What has been the most unexpected lesson that you've learned in your life?
That is a very good question. I think that probably having Sammie has really been and everyone else knows this, that like you can't control things, but really learning that when things don't go exactly as you plan, that you can thrive in it. And I truly mean it when I say this. Like if someone had given me a pen to write my book, I certainly wouldn't, the story of my life, I wouldn't have written in it that my child was gonna have things about her that make things difficult. But I also look at my life now with her and with Mia and Brian, of course, too, and I can't imagine a more beautiful life. And so much of that is what she's given me. And I think it's a really such perspective.
She's a wonderful girl too. Like I've gotten to know Sammie a little bit in the time that we've known each other, and she looks at the world with wonder, and she's positive, and yes, has a lot of challenges with her, like you said, her movement, which I want you to tell everybody a little bit more about, but she just endures, and she prevails, and I've always, every time I tell you that all the time, I am just amazed by her. So let's talk about that for a second, because you talked about you started a foundation, and it's let me get this right, CACNA 1A Foundation. One of the things we want to do here is bring attention to different foundations and nonprofits, but also have people give to them. And so can you tell everybody a little bit about this and how Sammie inspired you to start the foundation?
Yes. So first I'll tell one anecdote about Sammie, which goes back to me learning to be light and fun sometimes, is that she is 100% a reminder to do that. And one incredible story that we love is that one night we were doing some table topic cards at dinner, and the question was something like, if you could do anything in the world, what would it be? And we all gave very, even Mia, who's younger than her, gave these very serious answers. And I don't remember what anyone else at the table's answers were, right? But they were to achieve something, or to travel to Paris, or whatever, real things. and we get to Sammie, and she said, I just am having a really hard time deciding. And we were like, okay, well, you get to say 2 then. And she goes, it would either be sliding down a rainbow or riding a unicorn. And it was just that is so perfectly her. And so that's our reminder to find a little magic. If you can do anything in the world, it doesn't have to be even a real thing. This is a fun question. Yeah. So anyway, that's Sammie, and forever a reminder to remember the magic and creativity and imagination and all that. But so Sammie has a variation in the CACNA 1A gene. It's not inherited. It's just random. It's how she was made. And the CACNA 1A, I'm going to describe this at a very, very basic level, but we got her diagnosis when she was 10. So for the first 10 years of her life, the first 3 years we traveled all over the country, saw specialists, no diagnosis, despite lots of tests. We ultimately kind of got a generic or an umbrella cerebral palsy diagnosis. But we always knew it was caused by something else, and we were told just something that science had not discovered yet. And so in 2019, she had what was really a medical crisis and was in the PICU. And we started tests over. We started some tests over, and it's just that one of the tests that we'd run in 2013 or whenever it was is more advanced now, and they can look at our DNA and our look at genes on a much more granular level. And so we got a diagnosis, and it was a really. And so we learned that she has this variation in the CACNA 1A gene. CACNA 1A gene is a channelopathy is what basically the diagnosis is, which is the calcium that goes to and from her brain. We don't know if too much goes, too little goes. We're still learning a lot. It's super rare. As far as we know, she's the only person with her variation, although there are people with other variations, but still all diagnosed pretty recently. And it was initially, it was a hard pill to swallow, because I had spent 10 years coming to terms with not having a diagnosis, and all of a sudden we had a name for it. And when you get a name for something, normally people are like, oh, well, that's great. Now you have answers. Knowledge is power. But it didn't feel that way when we were at one of the best hospitals in the country, and they handed us a piece of paper with her diagnosis on it and said, we don't really know anything about it. And so, no surprise, kind of who I am, I went about learning about it in whatever way I could. And I wound up connecting, there's a Facebook group for families with people with CACNA 1A variations. I was searching, trying to find which doctors know about it. There are not many. Wound up connecting with a mom in Virginia, and we just had a great conversation right from the start, that, sharing about our girls. Her daughter Marin is a little bit younger than Sammie, and then a few moms on the board got together, formed a foundation that ultimately called and asked me if I would join. And now we are about a year and a few months into it, and we've selected the recipients of 3 research grants. And so we now have scientists this is what they're focused on. And through funds we've raised, I've learned an awful lot about rare disease and rare disease research and how things are funded. And I have a lot of hope and optimism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been on a little bit of your journey with you, and I remember when Sammie got sick and you got this diagnosis, and you right from the get-go have just jumped right in, like you do with most things, kind of make order out of chaos and take this information and then bring attention to it. Like you said, organizing at least these 3 research grants, hopefully more, to help Sammie and other kids like her. So I definitely want people to donate to CACNA 1A. Yes, it's a rare disease, and you may not think it affects you, but someday, if you ever find yourself in a situation where you're impacted by a rare disease, you would want somebody like Allison in your corner, bringing attention to it. And I happen to know that she gives to a lot of different organizations all the time, always has. So please donate. Is there a way to get involved beyond just, fundraising?
Yeah. So our website is www.cacna1a.org. It's CACNA 1A, which is the gene. And one thing that we are learning is that it may not be as rare as we thought. So we now know that certain types of migraines that are called hemiplegic migraines, that are rare, very serious form of migraine, are often caused by variations in this gene. People with epilepsy often. Mm-hmm. So now, even adults that we've had have been walking around for years with maybe seemed like mild cerebral palsy or epilepsy or a number of different things, they never had a test for this, right? Yeah. And it's just not something that was found. And so that's one of our, we really are working very hard to raise awareness so that we can raise our numbers, because it's once you have numbers, that's when pharmaceutical companies are interested in finding drugs for you, and that's when research grants from bigger funding sources happen. But we're really learning about new people in our community almost every day.
Yeah. And science, just in such a short amount of time, just how far it's come, to your point, is the sophistication of testing and treatments. Even, we've seen it with the pandemic, just the speed at which vaccines have emerged. Yes. And so please, that gives us hope. So please donate. You'll see at the end of the show, if you're on YouTube, you'll see a QR code. You can snap your phone and take a picture, and it immediately takes you to the site where you can donate and get involved and learn more. Otherwise, if you're listening to us on the podcast today, you can follow the instructions that Allison just gave you and find the foundation online. So Allison, what's next for you? What's coming up in your days, in your life?
Getting my kids back in school 5 days a week. Yep. Finding a new normal, I think. I think, the last year for many of us has felt like whiplash, right? Because it was like, it's not going to be a thing, and then the world shuts down, and I believed it was maybe going to last, a month at most, and then here we are much further out, and then the kids got to go back to school 2 days a week, and then school ended, and so it's been a lot of readjusting the normal, which I think, that's bringing order to chaos. That I can do that, but it's a lot of sort of whiplash. And so I really am looking forward to returning to a normal, or some new normal that allows me to really step back and be very strategic in how I want to grow my own business as a lawyer, what kind of work I want to do and want to bring to my firm. Because I think, in the last year and a half, we haven't been able to visit clients, right? Everything was on Zoom. But also, you kind of go into triage and survival mode. And I in particular, women, because it's been, we know that, right? It's disproportionately, in some instances, fallen on women. Although I will say that my husband has read every school email, and there have been 9 million of them, and I haven't read one since last July, and I'm okay with that. So it's not to say that I don't have a great partner that's supporting me. But anyway, I do feel like in the chaos of working and living and my children's schooling all in one house, a little bit of that like strategic thought gets lost.
Yeah.
And so that's what's next for me, is really stepping back and being strategic in what I want for my own personal growth instead of just doing the task at hand.
Yeah. I think, yes. And I think even when you get glimpses of that, it's, to your point, the whiplash effect has been happening, and you just need the sustainability and resilience of it. Yes, if you figure that out, share with the world. I think we could all benefit from that. I'm struggling with that myself, and I think that sounds amazing. I do hope that we find that's, I don't know what that new normal is, like you said, but I'm excited as well to figure out what it looks like and how we're all going to emerge from where we've been. I wanted to say, like, you talked about women and this, pandemic and the kind of circumstance we find ourselves in, maybe disproportionately impacting women. I think you're right. And I think more than ever, women need each other, and we need to lift each other up, and we need to find ways to help each other kind of navigate the stresses of family and the circumstances around us and work and anything else we're committed to. And I want to thank you for that, being that person in my life.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
For being one in mine. I mean, I think I also think once, and this was definitely true for you and I when we were working together, I think one really important thing is being able to admit to our colleagues and our peers, and it shouldn't be like, we shouldn't even phrase it like being able to admit, because that makes it seem like a very shameful thing. But I think just being really authentic about how hard it can be.
Yes.
And I will say that in the legal profession, which is, law school is a competitive environment, and then coming up at a law firm, it can be like and I think that maybe some of this comes with like some imposter syndrome stuff, but I think there's sometimes a fear of telling anyone else that something's hard, because maybe that means that you're not cut out for it. And I think that in particular, sometimes we don't own up to how hard it can be to be a mom and to work and to balance everything. And we're really, really doing the younger women who come up behind us a disservice, because then they're gonna believe that maybe it's just them that it's this hard for. And so I think really, and I think that's something that you and I found together, is sort of like not sugarcoating it and feeling responsible for the women coming behind us, but also not lying to them, or trying to make it seem like it was so easy, because that's not helping anyone.
No, it's not. And I think, we do owe that. We need to be real about human circumstances. One of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast, I think sometimes we put people up on pedestals and we're like, oh, they're so successful. They've got all these awards and this amazing career and all these things they do. And we don't see them as humans and, and kind of the human condition that we all share. And yet they're still special. They're still unique. They are amazing. They are not at fault or defective because they are going through life. So thank you for pointing that out, because I think that's exactly one of the reasons for this show. It's one of the reasons I highlight the people that on this show, like you, who I think other people look up to and say, she's got it all, she's doing it all, and you're saying, yeah, I am, and I'm learning along the way, and there's a lot to to work through as I go. So thank you for being such a wonderful role model for others, and being somebody, you can't ask for better than somebody that can create order from chaos, who cares about people, and who wants to win. To have somebody like that in your life is a privilege. So I really appreciate you. I'm so glad you made time to come on the show. We get to hang out together. And I can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And that is going to be the end of today's show. So glad that Allison came out and joined us. We're looking forward to all of our guests on season 2 of CN Free Studio. Please take time to subscribe. So you can go to cnfreestudio.com. You can watch us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Google Podcasts, pretty much anywhere you can find a podcast, we will be there. Thanks, everyone.